Hi, recently I made a video where I showed how to repair a customer's NuTone 8-note chime bass that she had done service on herself and then hired an electrician to reinstall it, and he messed it up and broke it. So she sent it to me to have me repair it, and I'll put a link to that video down in this video's description so you can see that also. After she got it back, she called me, it was actually yesterday, and she was very determined that she was going to reinstall it herself. I decided that since she had so much turmoil in trying to get the whole thing moved and reinstalled and then repaired, and the electrician really messed it all up, that I was going to spend time on the phone with her yesterday and walk her through hooking it back up to make sure that it worked by the time we got done. Now, all said and done, the whole phone conversation took about 15 or 20 minutes because she followed along really well. She understood what I wanted her to do and did what I said to do. And in the end, she pushed the button and rang the chime, and you could hear it ring in the background, and she was very happy. And that was the end of her 3-month saga of trying to get her long tube chime moved into her new house and get it hooked up. So I figured today I would do a video that showed how you wire up a NuTone 8-note chime bass. It would seem to be a simple thing, at least for me I consider it a simple thing. It's like I've been doing it my whole life, it seems like. But for other people it's somewhat of a mystery, and they have a hard time deciphering the instructions that come with the chimes. And this is true not only for homeowners, but it's also apparently true for electricians. So today's video is about how to wire up a NuTone 8-note chime bass. The fundamental thing you have to start with, that you have to understand, is there are 4 parts to everyone's door chime system. And it doesn't matter whether it's a 2-note chime, the type that goes ding dong, or whether it's a long tube 8-note chime or a short tube 8-note chime, or whatever kind of chime it is. There are a minimum of 4 parts to your chime system. 4. And it is a chime system because it's a group of individual items that are all connected together to make something work, and therefore it is a system. And if you look at it that way, it's easier to understand, it's easier to comprehend, and it's much easier to deal with. So on the whiteboard here, I have 3 of the 4 parts of an 8-note chime system drawn out. Let's review what they are. So over here we have a low voltage power transformer. For a NuTone chime, an 8-note chime, it would typically be a NuTone model 301T, or it could be a 301N if it's an older transformer, and it would be 16 volts at 30 watts. And this is a proper size transformer for an 8-note chime bass. Most all NuTone doorbells or door chimes have been 16 volts since the mid-1960s. And on an 8-note chime, you want a 30-watt transformer because it has a greater power reserve, which gives the plungers more oomph when they strike. You know, when the plungers strike the tubes, you don't want a little weenie strike. You want a nice solid strike. So having 30 watts of power available helps out in that department quite a bit. So part number 1 of your chime system is the transformer. Transformers can be mounted in a variety of places. They can be in the garage. They can be in a closet on the ceiling somewhere. They can be in a utility area like where your furnace or water heater is. If you live in parts of the country where you have basements, it could be in the basement. We don't have basements here in California, so I've never seen that. It could be a lot of places. They're not supposed to be in attics or in crawl spaces. And when I say crawl spaces, it's not homes with basements, but the time you have to like crawl under the house and you have like 16 inches of space, not in there. In California, almost always in the garage. The second part of your doorbell system is the push button. And the push button is, of course, typically next to the front door on your front porch. Now, some homes will have more than one push button. You may have a side door or a rear door, and we'll address that towards the end of the video. For the beginning part of the video, you only have a single push button on the front porch. The push button has 2 terminals where wires are connected. As on the transformer, you also have 2 terminals where wires can be connected. And then in your house somewhere, you have your NuTone 8-note chime bass. And this is a representation of what a chime bass would look like. It's a metal plate on the wall. You have several things on the plate. You have a motor assembly, which is this. So here's your motor. You have your solenoids down here with the plungers that pop out to hit the long brass tubes to make the chime sounds. You have a volume adjustment of some type here, and that regulates how hard the plungers will strike the tubes. And then somewhere on the chime, for the most part, for most NuTone chimes, you have the terminal strip. The terminal strip is down the center of the chime, and it's vertical like this. Terminal strip. There are some chimes that the terminal strip will be mounted horizontally across the top of the chime. It doesn't, for the purposes of connecting up the chime, it doesn't make any difference where the terminal strip is located. It's just a matter of reading the markings that go with the terminal strip and connecting the wires in their proper places. So while your terminal strip may not be identical to this, in fact your chime base may not be identical to this, fundamentally they're all the same, and this video applies to all of them. So we have three of our four parts. We have our transformer, part number 1, we have our push button, which is part number 2, and we have our 8-note chime base, which is part number 3. So now you might be thinking, well, where's part number 4? I don't see anything else in here. Well, part number 4 isn't on the board yet because part number 4 are the wires that connect all of this together. There'll be wires that connect the transformer to the chime, and there'll be wires that connect the push button to the chime. So the wires are part number 4. And the purpose of this video is to show you how to connect the wires up to the chime base so it will ring properly. So let me prepare for that and I'll be right back. Oh, I forgot. I was just reminded. There's a 5th part. The 5th part is Harvey. Harvey's a hedgehog. Harvey is our YouTube aficionado and our newly acquired shop mascot and social media expert. And Harvey is monitoring the video to make sure that I do a good job. And he said that he needs an arrow also. So this is Harvey. He's watching what's going on. Now I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so what I did here was to make this easier to show you how to wire up the terminal strip. I broke the terminal strip out of the chime base drawing and I made a really big one here. So this terminal strip is the same as this terminal strip. It's just much larger, so it's easier for you to see what I'm going to have you do. So on the terminal strip, on all NuTone chimes, the screw terminals, the blue dots are all screws where wires will be attached. And all of the screws will always be labeled as to what they're for. And in this particular case, and this is based on Helen's chime. Helen lives in Florida. So this is based on her chime, which was from 1985, which is in the previous video about repairing the chime base. So you can see it there. Okay, on her terminal strip, the order of the screw terminals and the way they were marked are, the first screw is called EXT front, that's external front. And external front is only used when you're chaining multiple chimes together in the same house. So if you have multiple 8-note chimes, you would use the terminal front connection to run a wire to the second 8-note chime, like upstairs or someplace, so they ring and activate at the same time. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I have only ever seen that used once. And so don't worry about it. Your chime probably won't have that. The second screw on the terminal strip is marked as front, and that will be where one of the wires from the push button, which is on the front porch of the house, will go. The third terminal is COM for COM, and COM is short for common, and that's where several wires will be connected that are common to how the chime will be working. The fourth screw is marked as trans, and trans is short for transformer, so guess what's going to get hooked there. The fifth screw says rear, and that would be for people that have a rear door button or a rear door on their house with a push button. And the last one is marked as side, and that's for people that have a side door with a button at it. So you have external front, common, transformer, rear, and side. Now, NuTone 8-note chime bases in the world of NuTone that I work in are often referred to as 4-wire chime bases because they require 4 wires to hook them up properly so they work the way that they were intended to work. And the reason that they're 4-wire chimes, and you'll see in a second when we start drawing in our wires, is the way an 8-note chime base operates is it's hanging on your wall waiting to be rung. Someone comes to your front porch and pushes the button, and that activates the motor, and the motor begins to turn the contacts behind it. And then, of course, the visitor, when they walk up, they push the button and release. And once they release it, if the power were to shut off, the chime would stall and stop. The chime has to run through the whole cycle, so the chime requires constant electricity to run through the cycle once the visitor has taken their finger off the button. So to do that, we have to supply constant power from the transformer to the terminal strip, which will then power the motor so it can run through its cycle. So for our wire colors today, we're using green and brown. And we're using green and brown because those were the color of the wires at Helen's house. So to keep it all even, let's just use Helen's wiring code. Now, people ask me all the time when they call me, well, I have these wires sticking out of my wall, and I've got a red wire and a green wire and a lavender wire and a white wire, and where do they go? And it's like, I don't know. I have no idea. When it comes to colors of wires, so we've got red, brown and green, and then we could have black and blue and red, and I've got yellow over here also. I have all these colors that I could use for wires. What it really comes down to is the color of wires that you have in your house depends solely and completely on what did Bob, the installer, have on his truck that day when he came to your house to wire the doorbell. If Bob had leftover green and brown wire, that's what he used. If he had red and white, that's what he used. Whatever Bob's got, Bob's going to use. Color of the wire doesn't make any difference. It's how the colors are hooked up that makes a difference, and it doesn't matter the color. So don't get all hung up on the color of your wires. Just figure out where the wires come from, where they're going to, and hook them up properly. But in this case, we've got brown and green. So the first connection to make is we have to supply constant power to our terminal strip, so we have constant power to our chime motor. And it's very simple to do. Constant power for the chime comes from the transformer. So all we're going to do is we're going to connect the green wire from one terminal on the transformer, and it's going to go across, and it's going to connect to the common terminal on the terminal strip. The second wire is going to come off the other terminal of the transformer, and it's going to run across, and it's going to connect to the transformer or the trans terminal on the terminal strip. We now have supplied constant power from our NuTone 301T 16-volt transformer. We've connected the transformer directly to the chime, and the chime is now receiving constant 16 volts of power. So right now, the chime is happy. It's got power. If your 8-note chime base is one of the models that has a decorative cover with little light bulbs behind it, right now, once we've made these two connections, your little light bulbs will all be lit up because the light bulbs stay on all the time. So, and that was in Helen's case because her chime base had lights on it. So as soon as she made these connections, her light bulbs lit up, and she said that was the first time she had seen that in 3 months. So the electrician never got that far. All right, so now we have our constant power and our transformer is hooked up. So the next thing we have to do is we have to hook up our push button, because the push button is what's going to activate the chime. And it's very simple. We still have green and brown wires because that's what Helen had connected to her push button. And it's very simple. We're going to take the green wire that comes from the push button, and now think really hard and make a guess before I draw it where you think it's going to go. Okay, that should be long enough. We're going to take the green wire that comes from one of the connections on the push button, and we're going to connect it up to where the other green wire was connected on the common terminal. And so why is it called a common terminal? Because all of the individual wires in the Chime system are connected to a common terminal, to the COM terminal. That's why it's common, because it's common to all of the other devices. So the green wire from the push button, from one side of the push button, connects to the common terminal on the terminal strip, just like the green wire from the transformer did. Now we're almost done. There's only one more wire to hook up, and that's the brown wire from the other side of the push button. Now, since this push button is on the front porch, now it's time to play the game again. Where do you think the brown wire is going to go on the terminal strip? This is like the whole Jeopardy thing, I guess. All right, brown wire time. So brown wire comes off the second terminal on the push button, and it follows the green wire, and guess where it's going to go? It's going to connect to the front terminal on the terminal strip, because it's the front door push button. So now we've added in our fourth part of our Chime system. We've added in our wiring. So we have all four parts of our system. Part number one is our transformer, part number two is our push button, part number three is our Chime base, and part number four are our wires that connect it all together. Now that since we've done this properly, when a visitor comes up and they push the button, they make a connection that activates the Chime motor begins to turn. As soon as the visitor lets go of the button, the motor will continue to turn because it has constant power from the transformer. It will run through its cycle until it reaches the end, and then it will stop automatically because the motor has a stop feature built into it, and the chime rings. And that's all there is to it. That's as complicated as it is to hook up a NuTone 4-wire 8-note chime base. All right, so the very last bit, so we don't leave things unfinished or leave people hanging, especially for all you folks in the Midwest and East Coast where you all seem to have side and rear door buttons for some reason. We don't have that in California very much. So I've drawn in two more push buttons. So this was the front door button. We're going to make this the rear door button, and we're going to make this the side door button. So I'm going to show you how to hook them all up for all you folks that have multiple doorbell buttons. We're going to stick with Helen's colors. We're still going to use green and brown because we don't want to make things too confusing, or maybe we will. You never know what we're going to find. Maybe Bob the installer put in the side door button, but maybe somebody else did the other one. You never know. You have to wait and find out. All right, so now we're going to do the rear door button, and we have to wire it in so it rings. So how are we going to do that? If you've really been paying attention, you already know the answer, but if you weren't, I'm going to draw it in for you. So on the rear door button, we take our green wire that comes off of it, and we take it around, and guess where it goes? It goes on the common terminal with all the other green wires, because green is common and common is common. It's all the common wires, all the green wires go on the common terminal. But then since this is the rear door button, when we go to hook up the brown wire is going to go around this way, and guess where it's going to go? It's going to attach to the screw that says rear, because rear button, rear connection makes it ring rear. Now, most NuTone 8-note chimes, the front door rings 4 notes or 8 notes depending on how you set the little switch on the motor right here, where it will say 4 or 8, but the rear door usually strikes the third tube, just gong, 1 tube, and that's all. So let's say, and then we have our side door button that we have to hook up. Now, it's very likely that the side door button was installed later on because they did a family room addition and they added a back door and all of these other things, and that wasn't wired by Bob the installer. It was wired by some other guy named Clive who worked for the general contractor, and he said, oh yeah, it's a doorbell, I can do that, no problem. So he used different kind of wire because that's what Clive had lying around in his truck, and he only had blue and orange wire. Now don't freak out, because remember, the color of the wire doesn't make any difference. It's just a matter of knowing where it comes from and knowing where to put it when at the other end. So now we have blue and orange wire. We're changing it up. Harvey's getting excited. So now we're going to hook up that. So we have to figure out, of the blue and orange wires, which ones are we going to make our common. Me personally, I think blue is a good color for common because blue and green kind of seem like they make a good color pair. So it doesn't really make any difference, but I'm going to take the blue wire from one terminal on the side door button, and guess where it goes? It goes with all the other common wires. So now we have 3 green common wires, but we also have a blue common wire. Again, the color of the wire doesn't make any difference. I know for a fact from personal experience, because I've already talked to them, the electrons inside the copper wire do not care at all what color is on the outside of the wire. They're just electrons. They don't really know. All right, so blue on the side door button goes to common, and then the orange wire from the other side of the side door button, guess where that's going to go? That's going to go over here to the side door terminal. Now we have a house that has 3 working push buttons. We have a front door button that rings 4 or 8 notes. We have a rear door button that rings 1 note on the 3rd plunger. We have the side door button, which usually rings a single note on the 2nd plunger. We have constant power to our chime, so it'll run through the cycle all the way like it's supposed to, and that's it. We're all done. That's how hard it is. You know, it took me longer to make this video than it would have been to go to somebody's house and actually hook this up. This is not complicated once you see somebody do it. So that's it. That's all there is to hooking up a NuTone 8-note chime base. And it doesn't matter how old your chime base is. Like I said in an earlier part of the video, your terminal strip may not be vertical, it may be horizontal. The order of the connections on some older chimes may be slightly different than this, but they're all marked in exactly the same ways. Some of the really early chimes from the 50s and 60s, they don't have external front because that was a newer idea. I guess they added at some point. It doesn't matter what order these are as long as you hook up the wires in the right places. It doesn't matter how this is jumbled up. The wires, if you move them, the wires just move with them. It's all the same. It's very easy. So that's the ins and outs of hooking up a NuTone 8-note chime base. I hope you found this to be interesting and helpful. If you did, Harvey says he found this to be very enlightening. He said he's going to go home tonight and see if he can wire up a NuTone 8-note chime base because he said he learned a lot. And he said definitely if you learn something from this video, he really expects you to give it a thumbs up on YouTube. He says, and he's in charge, he says this video is ad-free, as is our YouTube channel. You don't have to sit through a 3-minute ad at the beginning of the video that says, do you want to design a website? Or do you want a new career in flipping houses or some other thing like that? No, we just jump right into the video and tell you how to do things, and we don't have any ads. And Harvey says, we're not making any money for doing this. We're just trying to help people out. So we need the thumbs up, and Harvey says we need you to subscribe. See, he has his little subscribe plaque there. He wants you to subscribe to our channel so he knows that you appreciate it and you're paying attention, and maybe you learn something and you can go home and wire up your chime and not pay an electrician a service call to come out and ruin your chime base and then have to send it to me. Anyway, that's what Harvey says. He's a slave driver. He like cracks the whip here all the time on the videos. So that's all there is for today. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. See you on the next video.